Okay, we should be live. Let me just make sure that we are. Just gonna make sure that we are actually live. Because I didn't get the notification. Okay, yeah, we're live. Okay. Let's just wait for people to come in. Or do you just want to start now?
We're live streaming?
Yeah, we're live now. We're live now.
All right, everybody. Let's see. Let me check.
All right. Can you hear me?
Very clearly.
All right, that's perfect. Yeah, because I
Okay,
closed a
great.
couple of.
Yeah, there's no more echoes. That's great. Okay, I think we've got it.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, we can kick off. I mean, in terms of the who, the why, the where, the when, the how much, the what. Yeah, just to have our head around the topic and our strategies and future action. What's our
Absolutely.
action plan? Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to start, you can just introduce yourself.
Yeah. So I am Madike. I'm from Senegal and currently living in Ireland. I've been living here for 7 years. I'm a board member of the Us Lifting Us organization in Atlanta, Georgia. And I've been involved in Pan African activities since day one.
And I'm Chizoro Okeke, and I've been active in ULU as well for maybe a year. But I've also been organizing. I don't like saying Pan African, but just trying to connect with the Africans in a strategic way, trying to organize. And so the four topics that we're probably going to be discussing is autonomous communities, um, mostly in Nigeria, but also around the world. Us lifting us, rolling that, and maybe the UNIA and ACL is rolling that. And I don't know, we'll just go stream of consciousness and discuss what comes to mind and how we're going to organize these kind of things and put it into action.
Okay, great. Madike, do you want to just kind of give an explanation to the uplifting us and just give us kind of the rundown so that people can have an idea of what exactly it is?
All right. So Us Lifting Us is cooperative economics organization. So we promote black businesses, black people coming together to do business together based on the rules of co-op as opposed to the rules of capitalism. We believe that it is capitalism that kept our people down and that has been keeping them down so far. So we believe that by pulling our resources together, we can set up businesses for the generations ahead, whether it be coffee shop, manufacturing businesses, transportation, education, whatever the case might be. We believe that black people, the family coming together and pooling the resources, can achieve what we've been looking for.
Okay, great. And you said that you're in Ireland, so I'm guessing that this is like an international kind of group effort to try and basically pull our resources together and work in kind of our own black world economy is basically it. Is that what it is?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Basically, the only rule to be able to join us lifting us is to be from a Black African descent background. So if people are interested, they can go to the website, which is usliftingus.com. So that's usliftingus.com. And the membership fee is a small fee of $50 yearly. That would come down to 34 pound or 40 euros. And it's international. We have members in the Caribbean, in the continent, in South America, North America, and Europe. Wherever our people are, we really ask them to join and pull our resources together.
Okay, that sounds really good. What I'll do is I'm not sure if it hyperlinked in the chat, but I will put the website into the chat so that people can have a look. And I mean, $50 €40, 35, £34 per year.
Yeah, that's
That's
correct.
that's nothing really. I mean, you can. It's like what, a week's worth of food.
Yeah,
So
and
just to put that together for a membership for a whole year, that's not asking for anything.
yes, exactly. And what our goal is at the moment currently is to have 1,000 member by the year March 2020. Why March 2020? Because March is the month in which we are having our annual summit. So every year in March, down there in Atlanta, the location might change though. We might have it in New York, we might have it in Los Angeles or outside the United States. The reason why we are having this summit in the United States is because this is where the organization was born. And Atlanta is known for its Pan African historic linkage going back to Garvey. So, so that's usliftingus.com. And we are aiming to have 1,000 members by March and 2020 from Black African descent.
All right, great. So what we've got, I don't know if Chizora, do you want to kind of give your explanation on the traditional government side?
Yeah, basically, I basically started off this year looking for a way to connect uh, the traditional governments in Africa with the traditional governments in the diaspora. And basically, what we found out that was in Nigeria, they have something called an autonomous community system, where basically these governments are left to basically govern themselves to a certain degree, to a larger degree, than any other traditional communities in the continent. So basically, have like hundreds and thousands, maybe even thousands of groups with this autonomous status where they'd be able to represent themselves in a larger capacity of sovereignty as far as maybe diplomats going to different countries, like whether it's Jamaica with the Maroons or Senegal with their communities, and just being diplomats and setting up something like ULU cooperatives. But right now, people aren't really using those communities for that purpose, or they're not informed as to the potentials of forming like a league of communities or a network or a federation. And I'm thinking that it's probably time that we start focusing on that instead of maybe just getting a check from the federal government. But we should use a grassroots form of African unity and economic and cultural development. So I'm also thinking, I've also been looking at maybe not communities per se, but institutions or clubs or African family centered clubs in the diaspora. They might not have land, but maybe they'd be able to join something like this, a federation or league like this. So that's what I've been doing for the past couple months on the as far as organizing. Hello? Hello?
Yeah, hello,
Hello?
I'm still here. I think, yeah. Oh, you can hear me
Okay,
now. Yeah.
sorry. I
Okay.
thought I dropped out. Sorry, it just froze up on me. Okay, is this aimed at like
Your line is cutting off, sister.
a particular try? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, your line is breaking off. I think now I can hear you.
Good now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
On the mic.
it's so good. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So is this like so we're looking at traditional governments? Are we choosing from a particular group, or is this going to be from various tribes, or how's this? What's the idea when it
Well, I'm
comes
saying
to the different traditional governments?
like we probably have like a charter system or a set of rules, and then people who agree to these rules, they basically be in like a cooperative or synchronized formation, like a larger community. Like and that also plays into us lifting us role. I think that'd be a perfect place to promote us lifting us and organize people into uniting, because the capitalistic form of prosperity isn't going to work for us as, going forward. So also us lifting us role would have a role in it, and the UNI and ACL. I was actually looking at different organizations that were like-minded in history, and I think right now the UNI and the ACL, Marcus Garvey's old organization, would be playing a major part in that as far as collecting information and creating like an information network towards creating these grassroots governments and organizations that would be able to speak with one voice. Now, I've been talking to people, a lot of people on the ground outside of the internet, and a lot of people are interested. So that's I think I think we can make progress on this, but it's just about putting it into action.
Okay, so it's like we've got the economics that meets the kind of social. I don't know if I don't is jurisprudence the right word? I don't know if that's the right word to use, but
You
kind
said
of the
jurisprudence. I don't know.
it's like the social
Economic
structure
policy.
meets economics.
Yeah.
So within we kind of control our economics through our social structure and vice versa. So it's like
Yeah.
about meshing them together, like syncretizing them together, like you said.
Yeah.
Okay. Adike, did you want to say
Economic.
something?
Yeah, I was gonna echo what you just said. This is exactly what it is. We want to put together the economics through co-op and the political through traditional communities, local communities, as the brother just has just spoken about. And this is something that is very needed right now by our people. I can hear the need when I travel to the UK, when I travel to the US or back to the continent or even to the Caribbean. Our people want to join each other. They don't want these borders anymore, these passports and nationalities that we inherited from the plantation way of divided Africa from the 19th century. Our people, really, the new generation now, wanna join each other and shake hands and build with each other. We want to have families across the continent, across the Atlantic, made up of different ethnic group. Right now, they're talking about a passport that's gonna be a kind of Pan-African passport that's gonna allow you to travel across Africa. The only thing is it's political from the top down, not from grassroots. So um, what I mean by that is in the same way that we had the African Union built from the top down, we might have the same issue with that passport. It's just another way for foreign powers to control Africa and to be able to travel without borders. If that passport um, came into being, it needs to be from ourselves, from the people on the ground, from the local communities, as the brother said, and it needs to be based on the concept of cooperative economics.
So I'm guessing then that the African Union is essentially kind of running like the European Union, where everyone is their own separate state and will just trade amongst each other and allow free movement between borders. But nobody's actually considered to drop those borders and work together for the sake of the collective.
Yeah, that's kind of the way how things are, messed up a little bit, if I may say. What you have right now, you have two Africas, right? You have one Africa for the elites, um, that are in, they have government positions, so they have their families doing their studies outside the country. They have two passport. Most of the, even the president of in Africa, and government bodies, the personnel might have a French passport along with a Senegalese passport, Nigerian passport along with another UK passport. Um, so that's one Africa. That Africa is not the Africa that the everyday Africa for, for the people that are on the street, grassroots, that are struggling. Those people don't have any passport. They don't even have the Nigerian passport or the Senegalese passport. In order for them to have a passport, they have to pay high amount of sums. They're not allowed to travel. So no matter what the effect would be if we, um, you know, implement and get rid of those borders, it's gonna be the same. The effect is gonna be the same for those people. They might not be allowed to travel. They might be stopped by the police if they go to another country um, different to their ethnicities. So that's the second Africa. That's the Africa I'm interested in, and that's also the Africa that ULU is interested in, the grassroots. We want to talk to these people. We want to ask them to join us and build strong businesses and pull our resources together.
Excellent.
All right. Sorry, Chisora, did you want to say something?
No, I'm just listening. I agree.
All right. Do you want to? Should we jump straight into the PDF, the four
Um,
levels?
yeah, I'd like some feedback on this. I don't have it in front of me, but let me try and pull it up. Give me a second.
I've got it in front of me. I mean, if you want, I can start reading. In fact, no, you
Yeah.
start reading because you can pronounce it better than I can. I can't pronounce it.
All right. Let me let me pull up. I think I got it downloaded. Give me a second.
All right.
Uh, let's see.
If you want, I can resend it to you.
I think I have it. Yeah, I got it downloaded. Give me a second.
All right.
Yeah, I have it. So basically, what this document was, it was basically trying to reduce what we're trying to do into like a few levels of organization based on just researching how traditionally we organize ourselves, and just I was trying to take a step back and make everything as efficient as possible. It says four levels, but it's probably one or two basic levels. But I'll read it. It's pretty brief. Um, Give me a second. All right, so a document, it says overview, four levels of organization. And it's also a Chancellor Williams quote. I probably won't read the quote, but it's basically him talking about how he had a plan for organization, and families were probably going to be the most organic part of the organization. Um, but I'll read the couple levels. Uh, Level 0, we was going to call it AbaNtu or Ma'at, and this would be basically a knowledge or information network that discusses laws and what's harmonious, or progressive, or evolutionary behavior. This will include books, music, websites, pamphlets, emails, all kinds of social media, just a sanctioned or official communications network where people can get verifiable information as how we're going to progress. And then the next level would be Njoku NT, which would be coordinated study groups and workshops that use the previous level and learning how to create the next level, which would be basically multi-generational centered associations or family associations, which that are practicing group economics. And when we're talking about multi-generationally, I think that's important to be like family centered and multi-generational because that stabilizes these organizations, because we got a lot of organizations that are pretty much saying the same thing, but they're not family centered, so they're not stable. So one group will break off into another group, and they'll all be probably fighting over ego or how to spend money this way or that way. So just by studying our history, we learned that our communities were basically organizations in themselves. Families were organizations. So if we incorporate like a marriage principle or make it family centered, then I think it'll stabilize a lot of these organizations. If we just look at how our communities and nations were organized in the past, and we try and incorporate that into building these new organizations, which we calling it Ogbako Obodo, which means Association of Nations. Um, I basically said I would plug into the previous two levels, which was study groups and information base. And then from there, we had ULU, which was the economic factor. And then it was also two other levels about organizing similar minded organizations or similar Obako Obodo, which would be the family association or nation association. So in a review would be basically be an information database, study groups, and national associations or family associations. And these family associations would basically duplicate the government structure that we had in Africa. And basically it'd be a grassroots political system if we did it correctly. So that was basically the document.
Sorry, this thing keeps freezing up. Okay, so that basically gives us an idea of the four levels of organization. And let me see, what can we say? Like, so using this, what is pretty much what is the end goal basically? So we implement all of this, and then how does this fit into?
Hello?
Did you catch the last bit of my question?
Yeah, I
Oh,
think your line is breaking up, sister.
you said what would it look like, basically?
Yeah, what would it look like? Because
Basically,
we've
it'd be
kind of
like,
got.
I
So
think it
go
would
on.
basically look like an empire or an empire, because that plays into what the original intention of the UNIA and ACL was. It was actually to be it was mirrored after the Imperial League of Britain or the UK. So back then, in those times, there was a lot of empires and kingdoms and monarchies that were running rampant all over Africa. And Marcus Garvey was saying, "Where's our government? Where's our king? Our men of affairs?" So he was using the best information that he had to design an empire. And if it wasn't his goal wasn't to be like have a Western style democracy, but he was trying to have a modernized, updated version of the traditional African kingdoms and create a federation or a league of them. So if you keep that in mind when reviewing his works and his writings and studies, then and you also have a knowledge of contemporary Africana studies and our systems, I think that we'll be able to synthesize or create something that's stronger. So, but it would look like an empire or a large federation. So that's what I have in mind. And it would have physical communities, probably mostly in Africa to begin with. But as the diaspora starts getting organized, maybe they could get land in Africa or they could get land in the Caribbean and start settling there as we get more organized and more solidified on these basic levels of organization.
Okay, so as people know, I just came back from the Caribbean like 3 weeks ago. Okay, and from what I get, the situation out there, I mean, I only went to one island, but it's pretty much the same across. There's this air of desperation for change, but I think that a lot of the time, sort of the average person doesn't quite know what the change is in terms of,
Mm-hmm.
okay, the only change that they know of is like, okay, every 5 years or every 10 years in some cases, or every 15 years in some cases, we'll get someone new in. We expect them to do this and fix that, and we want this, the economy needs changing, or we need to try and diversify, all these things like that, but they don't know anything about necessarily the governmental style changes, because as much as they're so-called independent, they've remained either under the French or the British style of rule. So
Mm-hmm.
how does this, so basically you're saying that it's essentially like an empire or a federation. How
Basically, it
does
would
this
be
play
basically it's
within
like
how people live like over there, because these are so-called black or African descent countries, but still run as if Britain's still running it.
basically I would like I know you're over there with AHF or the African Heritage Foundation, but basically if we do it correctly, it would look like that foundation, but it would be more families involved. It would be multiple groups of the AHF, but maybe it would be like they call themselves this family or that family, but in a traditional language, of course. And it would just be a large federation of them, and they basically be cultural clubs, political parties, families, groups, all at the same time. And we actually have a couple of examples of this in the USA. We have the Oil Tunji village. Um, they're basically a couple sets of families mainly, and then some affiliates, but they're all in one occupied place. There's also, let me think, the Egbe Joba, which I think is in Philadelphia. It's a multi-generational club, and in Yoruba it means a governmental society or uh, sovereign club, and they use the Yoruba system called Idile, which is it's a political system, it's a kinship system, but it would look like that. So I was trying to find groups that would be basically the model would probably be Egbe and Joba, but having multiple or lots of them, and all coming together, meeting, doing cooperative economics. But it's going to start slow. But I think I was talking to some people in Atlanta that are interested, and people in Haiti who talked about. Uh, I talked to some people in Florida that are interested. So it would just be trying to get everybody to the table, seeing how we're going to reformat these organizations, join them, and update them to accomplish our goals, or create new organizations to accomplish our goals.
Okay, so which one comes first then? Do we do the social and family planning first, or is it economics? Which one's more important, do you think?
I think me and brother Madike talked to this before earlier today. We talked about how to just get people involved, you're going to have to show them an economic prosperity, like food, clothing, shelter, how it's going to work out. So I think ULU would probably have to be level 0 if I had to rewrite that whole document. It'd have to be group economics, show them a vision of that, and then maybe show them the ultimate plan would be a multi-generational club, communities, things of that nature.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we talked about 2 hours ago. I think the most urgent things is the economics. You know, you talked about having gone to the Caribbean recently, and you saw the desperation. That desperation is mostly economics. It's caused by that. So once you get the economics fixed, you can get everything else. Once people have jobs, or businesses going on, or food, clothing, and shelter, they're gonna be inclined in listening to what you have to say on the political level. But if you call, if you want to get people involved politically, um, they might turn off your offer, and basically tell you that no, they have other priorities to deal with, and those over commitments and priorities are mainly economics. um, and this is not something natural. This is not something that is done naturally. This is something done by design. If you travel to Bermuda, to Barbados, Jamaica, um, there's a there's an economic system maintained to control people from Black African descent, whether it is by importing products from the UK, or from the ancient colonial powers, or the clothing, and the distribution system, the supermarkets. Everything is controlled by the former slave master, and that's the exact same thing in Africa. So let's go back to that level of economic needs for our people, starting by the food, going up to the job and employment issues, and build one by one. Set the puzzle, and we have the resources. We have very strong, intelligent people. We are the most creative people on the surface of the earth. So let's build, innovate, but this time we're gonna do it for ourselves. And once we do it for ourselves, and we have enough food, we have enough housing, we can now get to the political level. And that political level, I also have my piece, and that's the suggestion that I was gonna make to you, brother. Basically, what I was thinking about doing, once the ULU structure and the group economics, family economics is set up, what you might have, I think that's the best thing, that's my recommendation anyway, would have one party, one international party based on African tradition, and we're going to promote that party across all Black countries, whether it be in the continent or outside the continent. And that party will aim to basically respond to the basic needs of our people, and that's gonna be our campaign, our main topic in our campaign. Respond to the basic needs of African people, and with that one party across the continent, the Caribbean, and wherever our people are, you can win elections. Once you win the elections, you can change the program, and you can tailor the policies and regulations and laws of the states to group economics. So 3 steps. First step, economics. Let's get our economics fixed. Second steps, let's finance the politics by the economics. that we you know, gonna make a huge profit from. That's the second step, and the third step is to link them together. Now, once you have the political, now once you are head of state or at the government level, you can implement and enforce those policies that you've been doing at the group economics level.
I don't know about that actually, because from what I've seen, when you try and get to state politics, it's a contradiction of, it's a conflict of interest, because once their people are in a state government, they don't want to shut it down or reorganize the state, and that's more where we're headed. Where people are, even the African Union has said that the borders are probably going to get erased or restructured. So my concern is, are the people at the grassroots level going to be restructuring it, or is it going to be, merging like East Africa with foreign interests, or North Africa? We're going to be merging the borders for the elites, like you talked about. So I'm more concerned with, I think the borders and the governments are actually, everybody's saying that they're going to be restructured or erased eventually. So I'm more concerned with organizing the grassroots governments. But I don't know about winning elections and things of that nature. But I think that you could use the grassroots to maybe send somebody into politics, or commandeer the political system to do what you want in certain things. But as far as creating a party, I don't think that would work.
Just to kind of chime in on that point, I mean, for what I know of Barbados, there is, from its history as well, because Barbados did have its brush with Garvey as well, there has always been this kind of sense of Pan-Africanism in the island. So you do have your Ministry of Pan-African Affairs, which I believe is like an official government ministry, but I haven't really seen any work for what they're supposed to be. You always hear about these people in the news going up against the now former administration, but you never ever got to see any kind of fruit of what they're supposed to give. So I guess when you could have your own political parties, but i.e., like, you've got the state government, but then you've got your, like you said, the grassroots government, the government that would actually mobilize the people, because these state governments don't do anything for them.
Yeah, so the interesting thing is, if we go to state government and they actually develop the grassroots people, like if they give us a knowledge of our traditions, right, we'll see our traditional culture and how it was actually, in fact, the government. Is it realistic to expect the state government that works for the elites, for everybody in state government, to develop a grassroots government that will eventually grow powerful enough to replace them in all these borders?
No, I mean, they wouldn't put effort into developing something that would eventually abolish them. But I mean, we don't really necessarily need to rely on them. This is about kind of us working from the ground upwards, because they're coming from the top down. And really, they don't, in the Caribbean, they don't give the people anything. They just strangle and strangle and strangle the people. And people are literally trying to flee.
From the top, sister. They supposedly working from the top down, but they remain at the top. And they never come down, actually.
I mean, some of the things, like, I was talking to, a lot of just your regular people, because I wasn't staying in the hotel. Like, I'd get up and go out every single day. So, you talk to the taxi drivers, you talk to just people selling fruit on the street, bus drivers, all kinds of people. And I'd never thought that I'd hear a Bajan say, I just want to leave this place. Like, I want to flee because they're strangling us, basically. Every time they heap a levy on the people, and then the tourists and the foreigners that come in, the more money they put in, the more pressure gets put on the people, because they're not taxed. The people pay the taxes for the foreigners
That's what I
and things
mean.
like that.
That's what I mean by getting to the politics and taking over the states, because you can be as group economics as you will. You're not gonna be able to organize this if you don't have the power. Where does the power sit at the government level? Let's say if you are successful in building up ULU businesses there in Barbados, um, no matter what your success and what is the extent of the people that you're going to get engaged, the government can shut that down overnight. Overnight. So you're gonna have to be able to protect your group community, your group economics, your grassroots organization, by having somebody at the government, or I don't know, if it's not a political party, it has to be somebody at the state level. These things was kind of in place in Cuba. This is why Cuba ended up having the war with the United States, because they wanted to have a government that would control everything. They haven't done it successfully, but the idea was genuine and was kind of African. Yeah, they based their ideas on African ideology um, of what is economics. Venezuela is trying it, and you can see the backlash that they're receiving.
Right.
Uh, it's not gonna be easy, but if you don't have anybody at the government level, if you don't have nobody there, group economics might mean nothing. That's just my opinion, anyway.
Okay, just another place as well that did make an attempt was Grenada. If people look into the history
Oh
of
yeah,
Grenada
yeah,
during
yeah,
the
yeah. Bishop,
late 70s and early 80s, yeah, Maurice
yeah,
Bishop,
Bishop,
who
yeah.
actually worked with Cuba, and sadly Maurice Bishop is no longer here. So just so we can put
True,
that out there
that's
for
true.
people to look into. But no, I mean there's definitely that air of desperation. People are looking for change, and I think for me personally, my thing is like, okay, me being born here, two generations, I'm always hearing about the problems that go on back home in the Caribbean, and how, pretty much there's always a problem with the economy, money's going missing. They just released a press conference about how much basically Barbados is broke. So now they're going to the IMF because they have no money because of mismanagement and people being greedy and lining their pockets. Now, me over here, there are a good sizable amount of Afro Caribbean people in the UK. We migrated from the 40s up until about the 70s to the 80s. We've been here a while. We make our money, but we never seem to bother to go home. And I don't know, in a sense, is it because we can't find jobs when we get home because there aren't really any jobs for people there, or we feel like there's nothing that we can bring there. Like, is there a way that us lifting us can help us perhaps be able to start businesses and then bring the wealth back home and spread the wealth throughout?
Yeah, that definitely. That's our goal. That's our goal. Recycling that black dollar, that black pound, black euros, between ourselves, and we have an element in ULU, which is UBC, the Unity Based Collective. That UBC is the idea that anybody from the diaspora can set up an ULU based, whether it is 10 members, 15 members, 20 members. And the more you have members in your UBC, the more we will be inclined to set up a business there, whether it be a coffee shop, a hair salon, or again, what I said about transportation, manufacturing, whatever the case might be. We're going to be based on the ULU-based collective. And by the way, I'm planning to go to the UK to organize an event and try to get more brothers and sisters on board. And I think there's already a UBC there in London for ULU. So how do we help our people? We're gonna help our people, but getting them organized. The key things is being organized. You talked about the 40s and the 70s and the 80s. During those years, what happened is Europe needed to be rebuilt. All right. After the Second World War, Europe needed to be rebuilt. So we came here for two main reasons. The first reason is the rebuilding of Europe. And the second reason was consumption. So those people, the former colonial powers, thought that by bringing people from Africa and from the Black world back to the continent of Europe or back to the United States, they could be able to rebuild and get a high consumption rate in those countries. And they did it through assimilation. They assimilated us. They gave us citizenship of those countries, so we can see ourselves no longer belonging to the Barbados or to Senegal or to Nigeria. And that's where the trap is. Now, 50 years later, we just realized that we have built nothing. So this was just a waste of time hanging there in the white world, building their infrastructures and businesses and consuming their products and not sending any profit back to our main country, home countries. This is what we want to avoid in ULU. And this is the time to do it. We have to do it from the ground up, as you said, and from being economically engaged and group economics oriented.
I love how you put that, because that's been like, I've had my gripe, because I'd like to sort of self-reflect, because I don't always like to say necessarily that everyone outside of us is the reason why we're in the position that we're in, because I do feel that we do play a responsibility. So like my grandparents came here in the 60s, and their whole initial thing was just come here, we get money, we go home. So we go home to rebuild. And like, we just ended up staying because of, certain circumstances and things like that. But even the fact that we're here, we don't really bother with home. And it's not just my family. A lot of people that come from the Caribbean come here and just, like you say, completely forget where they come from. Now they're British and they've got their passport and they've got their papers and they've got their indefinite right to remain, or whatever it is, to say that you can be here permanently. But now we've got this situation where we find out that all these people have now been deported from Britain. And there's this whole uproar from people like my generation and maybe slightly older and slightly younger as well, where, it's the wake-up call that actually you never were a part of Britain. You were just here to rebuild after the war, run the factories until we didn't need factories anymore, drive the buses,
and
consume.
Yeah.
Be the nurses. You're just here to do all the thankless tasks, do all the jobs that are menial, and then you die. Everyone always talks about going home and retiring back home, but 9 times out of 10 they end up dying here and never bothering to go back.
Where does your wealth sit?
Nowhere, because we don't have wealth.
When you die. No, the thing is,
the government come and take whatever you have.
I think the government of Great Britain.
Oh yeah,
UK.
Yeah. They tax everything. So when you die, you get taxed. There's certain inheritance taxes and all kinds of stuff that they tax you with. So your wealth just goes straight back to Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs. So that goes straight back to the government, and you won't see that money again. But even, you've got other groups, other ethnic groups, as well as West Africans who came here a little bit later than we did, people from the Caribbean, but have actually built up institutions that actually have things going for themselves. Like for us Caribbean people, we don't have anything but a Jamaica national, which you can only send money to Jamaica, as far as I know, if you're from Jamaica. Like we don't have anything to show for our 70 years of being here. We have no financial institutions, no business institutions, nothing of any notability. Like there's nothing that we have to show for our time here. But I think that like to use this whole Windrush thing of them sending our grandparents and parents home, like we could take advantage of a situation like that, because now we're kind of realizing, okay, maybe we're not who we thought we were, i.e. British, and that we're not in the club. Now we need to maybe focus on ourselves. Like any other ethnic group does. The Arabs do it. The Eastern Europeans definitely do it. And now in certain areas of London where we tend to live or kind of populate, they're opening up their Polish delis or their Romanian delis, and we go in there and buy from them anywhere. The Asians too. I like the Indians. The Indians sell us Caribbean food as well as African foods, and we're more likely to want to buy from them than to buy from someone like us. And they also imitate our brands, imitate our foods, lower quality, and the money doesn't go back to where we live. It goes back to India to build their houses and to push their wealth even further. Meanwhile, our families back home are, living in poverty, basically. Like they still can't get running electricity the whole day, or running water, or running gas. Like it's ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous how we haven't achieved anything in almost 100 years, if you think about it.
I was last time I was in France in a barber shop. It's a black barber shop, right? But the guys that was doing the head was Chinese. So now the Chinese are learning how to, our hairstyle and our braids and whatnot.
Wow.
So we are being taken over by just sleeping every day, consuming and enjoying, just dancing and singing, while the entire world is about economics. We are the people who are not. Everybody,
Why do
the
you think
Arabs,
that is? I mean, do you think it's just down to slavery, or like, because I just don't always want to necessarily say because of slavery, we just never got anywhere, because there were times where we were doing things for ourselves. But I'm thinking, like, at what point did we just decide to say, you know what, rather than me wanting to do for my own country, I'd rather do for this country, I'd rather do for Britain, spend all my years here, waste all my time here, bleed, sweat and cry here, rather than go home where it's cheaper, where we're from, and like where we can circulate our money more, because there's familiarity there. We have certain ways that we operate there, whereas in Britain, we haven't been able to afford to do anything. But think about the money that we earn here in Europe and how far it can go over there.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying about, your spending should precede your earnings. What I mean by that is, before you receive any income or any money, you should already know where you're going to spend it. The Senegalese immigrant, or migrants now, as they call it now, who travel overseas and take a boat and land in Spain, he already knows that any dollar, any euros he's going to earn in Spain will be sent back to Senegal. He's going to send back that money to buy land and to sustain his family. Mm-hmm. He knows that he's not going to be spending anything in Spain. These are the recent migrants. Unfortunately, the brothers from the Caribbean and the former immigrants from Senegal and the first generation doesn't have the same behavior and the same mindset. Meaning by that our spending, our earnings precedes our spending. We only think about what we're gonna do with that money once we receive it. It's already too late. It's already too late. When you get your check, your £2,000 in London, the day you get that check, that payslip or whatever it is, uh, if you think about spending that money on the day you receive it, you're only gonna spend it on European and Caucasian um, article and items. It's gonna be too late. You're gonna spend it on stupid clothing and stupid entertainment, Western entertainment. Whereas when you have the Caribbean mindset, you have people back home. You know that they need you. You know what you're here for. You wake up every day with a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
You see, you have to wake up every day. That purpose would direct your spending. But if you wake up every day without no purpose and thinking that you're a British citizen or a French citizen or a Spanish citizen with that fake passport that they give you're going to be confused. Your spending should precede, the idea that you have about your spending should precede your earnings. That's the only solution for me.
That's really well put. I completely agree. Like you said, you need to spend money to make money, but it's about where your money goes. That is definitely it. Because thinking about, like, even what you said, let's say you get £2,000 a month, you spend probably a quarter of that on paying your bills to white-owned British companies. Then you pay your rent. Probably not a black landlord, probably just a white housing association, the council, or a white landlord, or even other ethnic groups now who are taking over, like the property ladder. Then you're spending your food, you're spending your money like for food and stuff from these British supermarkets, or American if you're buying from Asda, which is the sister company of Walmart. And then with the little leftover money that we do have, we're going to go to the club. We're going to spend it on some BS that we don't need. But then, when your cousin calls from Jamaica or somewhere like that, you always tell them that you don't have anything. But then when we get older, then we say, okay, I'm looking to retire now. I wonder if I should go back to Jamaica or wherever I come from. But you didn't have that money because you didn't bother saving it. Like, we don't even save. Like, I was reading an article, like a lot of just people in London in general have really no savings whatsoever. We don't even think to save our money. We just spend and spend and spend and spend.
You only save when you have a purpose.
Yeah, basically. And like you said, we're confused.
Purpose.
Yeah, we're confused because we think that we're British. This is all we have. So while we live here, we just live to spend here. I don't know if you want to add on to that, Madike or Chizora.
No, I'm just listening. I agree.
I mean, coming from, because you're in the States, and your parents migrated to the States, or was it your grandparents?
My parents migrated to the States.
Is it the same kind of situation where, like, people from West Africa move to the States and then they kind of get complacent, or has it always been a thing of, okay, we come here, we make money, we send it back, and then we leave?
I want to say a bit of both, but we've only been here for maybe 2 generations. Maybe some people 3. I don't know. Probably 2 generations at most. 2 generations.
Is it like a general? Is it like a general consensus, like a general rule where like, okay, you're from this part, like you're probably not gonna bother going back, or like is there a thing of kind of resenting where you come from?
No, you're supposed to come back and build. Some people don't. It's always some people make excuses why not to do it, or the politics, uh, political terrain is too treacherous and all sorts of stuff, corruption. But yeah,
Okay,
but
You
yeah,
fair
know, you
enough.
know, white European supremacy is all about dreams. They've been selling us dreams for over 500 plus years. They come and sell you dreams about basketball. Oh, you're gonna make it in the entertainment industry. You're gonna make it in Europe. Just go find a visa. Just come to Europe. Um, you know, run away from your land, whether it be Barbados, Jamaica, Senegal, Nigeria. You're gonna make it here. You're gonna become millionaire. You're gonna build houses. You're gonna be dressed like Europeans. Um, and that's what is keeping us addicted. You see, a pimp um, has a high control of the girls that are working for him through what addiction and dreams. We are just addicted to white supremacy, uh, and that's what we have to shut down. That's why we're confused. We don't have any purpose. We don't have any savings. We don't have any goals. We don't have any long-term plan. When you talk to brothers and sisters around the world, it's all about short-term plan, as if they're gonna die tomorrow. They don't have any 20 years plan, 30 years plan, 40 years century plan. You can't build a community with short-term plans. When you need long-term goal.
And does this come like okay? So do we work from the inside out, meaning we go from where we are considered, like where it's considered our countries? Do we work from there outwards, or do we work from the diaspora inwards? Do we bring what we can from here inwards, or do we try and work with what we got and push outwards? What do you think would be the best way?
mm. Can you
If
repeat
that
that?
made any sense. Okay, so like let's say right, we, there's like two ways of doing this. So all three of us on this panel are in the diaspora. We do not live where we come from. So we're on the outside. Do we go from the outside from where we are and work our way in terms of economics, so try and zero in on where we come from and work like that to bring the wealth in? Or do we go to where we come from and work our way out in terms of kind of spreading outwards with economics and the social structure? If I'm making
I
any
think
sense
what
at
that
all. I hope I'm
We
articulating
we
correctly.
we have we have to direct our sweat, tears, and blood towards Africa and the Caribbean, where most of our people are. We have to direct our investment, our money, and money is blood. That money, that pound that you're holding on your hand, represent the blood and sweat and tears you've been shedding. So that blood should be redirected not towards the European, but towards people who look like you. So, to answer your question, you have to think about ways to channel your money back home. No matter, you can be think about buying land in the Barbados. If not in the Barbados, think about Jamaica. If not in Jamaica, think about West Africa, East Africa. Try to channel your money where your mouth is and your people are. Why? Because, and you can see it now. You can see, they talk about Brexit, closing the borders. So Europeans are becoming um, less inclined to welcome us in their countries. Now we have rebuilt their continent and their economies. They don't need us anymore. You see, when Europeans don't need you anymore, they don't want you anymore. And that's exactly what happened after emancipation back in the 19th century, when they didn't need our ancestors in the plantation anymore. They started to, lynch them and Jim Crow them. Um, you might say that no, this can't happen today. It's 21st century, this and that. Europeans are Europeans, and Europeans will be Europeans. One day or another, they're gonna say it loud that they don't want us here. They never wanted us in the first place. They just needed us. And then your British nationality, your French nationality, your Irish nationality will become water. All of that is symbolism. All of this is symbolism. So yes, definitely the diaspora, because the diaspora has the capital of the former colonial power, the diaspora can change everything. Now, individually, you won't be able to do anything. If you go to Barbados yourself to buy land or to start business, it's gonna be hard. You have to link up with Senegalese brothers, with Nigerians brothers, with Caribbean brothers, and practice group economics.
Definitely. And then that's where us lifting us comes into it. And then the way that we operate with each other is where the traditional government and social structure comes in. So again, that's where it kind of meshes together. So we need to know how to deal with each other, and then we know how to deal with our economics and how we circulate our money. So that's definitely something for us to look at, definitely consider, because we haven't really been successful in any other endeavor. And when we have, unfortunately, it has been destroyed in one way or the other. So, rather than just kind of sitting around and waiting for the next thing, we need to kind of just get up, brush our knees off and move on. I did see in the chat, Mark Black was mentioning about how we don't have money, or in the States, there is no money. I mean, in Europe, Black people aren't rich either. We live in social housing with, it's poor quality social housing. I mean, we've had Grenfell Fire as a perfect example of the kind of places that we do live in, where the government's put you into these very dangerous places to live. And when they set fire, you're going to have about 100 people die. Then, we've got the crime issue, and the violence because of the environments that we lived in, these cramped sort of immigrant towns that we live in. We really don't have any money either. I mean, we don't get paid that much, and London is very, very expensive to live in anyway. So by the time you get paid, within payday, probably 3/4 of your money's already gone. But what our grandparents used to do is susu their money. So they used to put money together, have a goal of whatever they're going to use this money for, and then people kind of just get their little hand of money back. There's all these little ways of doing it. So it's not necessarily that because we have no money, we're not going to be able to do anything, because the money's not going to come out the sky. We're going to have to work to get the money, put the money together. Like Madike said, we need to have a reason to save. And once we have the reason, then that's where we'll start to find the money. I don't know if you can see in the chat the question.
I don't see the. I think I have to open the window to be able to see the chat, but I'm gonna let the brother answer to that and feedback to what you just said.
Chisoro, you gonna say something?
No, I'm just looking at the chat.
Okay, so Mark Black says, hold on, we need a land base, simple as that. I mean, we do have land. We do. The Caribbean islands, no one's going to be able to mass migrate there. That's virtually impossible, because the Caribbean diaspora population has grown significantly. So we wouldn't be able to necessarily all of us would go back, and, there would be literally no space. and then coming from the States as well, there'd be no space. Like that's not necessarily an option. But we have land base in terms of you could cultivate. The Caribbean has a perfect climate to cultivate things. People grow things out of their gardens all the time. Not as much as we used to, but it's definitely possible. So that's a land base. Then you've got West Africa, plenty of land. If that's what you meant by land base. But I mean, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that, Mark Black. Does anyone else have
Plenty of
anything to say
land.
to that?
There's plenty of land. It's just people don't know how to live together. They don't know how to mobilize or organize people to move onto the land. So you could be saying you need a land base for Marcus. That was the whole point of the UNIA. They were saying the diaspora needs land, but they didn't know how to organize themselves, and they started fighting over sabotaging each other. So here we are, almost 100 years later, talking about we need a land base. So that's what I'm talking about. People need we need to examine the culture of how people used to get along and organize themselves
Right.
before things actually get to a practical level. We literally been saying the same thing for 100 years about the diaspora need the land base and they need to return home to Africa, but people don't study, they don't research, but I think it's starting to change.
I mean, I agree with you on what you're saying about how people get along when they live together. Because one thing I did realize is obviously living in London, it's very insular. Like everyone is literally just an individual, and people go out of their way to not interact with other people. But then when I was in the Caribbean, it's like, okay, well, in Barbados in particular, because it's so small, everybody knows everybody in some way, shape, or form. There's always someone that will know somebody. So there's like a way that you interact with people, and that kind of keeps the peace. Like, and then the family structure thing as well. So like I was explaining to you kind of the family structures that we do have when it comes to the extended family, and like kind of in the older generations, families tended to live in one area. So like my family, for the most part, still do live in one particular street, which I think the Haitians calls it La Cour.
Yeah, I think they called it a meeting place where all the different villages, or like a village square or something like that.
Right. So we kind of have like this one central place, like that's like our hub basically. But then, like you said, there's just a way that everyone has to get along. But that's where the traditional side of stuff comes into it, right? Because then that will kind of give you the guideline as to how to live with
I wouldn't
people.
say not even traditional, it's just like there's systems that you could look at and study and reorganize or update to how to say how people are going to get along, whether it's marriage, passing down housing, or language, or what's tolerable language. These things all have to be organized. Positions within the group, whether inheritance, I think I mentioned that. Those sort of things all have to be hashed out ahead of time. Because we actually have like on Search for Who, we have another group talking about it's all about land, infrastructure, and nationhood. They want their own state in Africa, and they've been talking about this for like 10 years, and nobody joins their group. So we could direct people who want to say they're serious. We could direct them to that group, BAIO, a Black African Infrastructure Organization. See where that takes them. But that's where I'm at with it.
Right, but going back onto what you said about it not necessarily being traditional, well then what do you mean by it's not necessarily traditional? Like, because the Western thing clearly doesn't
like
work.
when I say the word traditional, some people get the wrong idea of it. Like say time tested systems. They've been there, they survived for a reason. But sometimes they say traditional, people get like the wrong idea. They start they'll like pick something that was stuck in the like something that's 2,000 years old just because it's 2,000 years old. They want to update it or look at the practicality of it. they won't examine it, they'll just start doing it because it's so-called tradition. So I'm just saying, look at it from a practical sense of how it works, how it worked in the past, and how it works today, or it should work.
So could you say like, okay, like me, I'm one of those people where if it's like over 1,000, 2,000 years old, not to say it's useless, but I don't think that it's necessarily going to be of any help simply because of the time. But like,
Yeah,
let's say to the transatlantic slave trade, so we still
I mean,
can,
it's
you
just
can still modernize it to a degree.
yeah, I'm saying like what like if let's say if you need a marriage system, there's something in Evo, it's called the Umune system. I might be pronouncing it wrong. It's Umune. So
Yeah,
that's
correct your
basically
tone. Correct your tone.
that's the um, it's like the kinship system tracing to the mother, and maybe maybe you might want to modify it if you live in a different place, or maybe like the village system. It might not work if you don't have land. So the village government system might not work. You might want to restructure it to where maybe it's a club, and you have the chief or the leaders in the club, but you don't have land yet, so you have to restructure things. That's what I'm talking about. Like you have to be adaptable and understand how it works, or where it's supposed to be updated. And just because it's old doesn't mean it won't work or it's completely useless.
All right, so we've been talking about like land bases and things like that. Then see, there's one part of the diaspora where it's more complex in terms of the Afro American, because the Caribbean, South America, Africa, of course, and the people that are in Europe, which are primarily West Africans and Caribbean people, we have a land to go to and we have a land that we can claim. What of the Afro Americans then? Like, where can they fit into this? Because they can't claim the states as their own per se. If you get what I mean. Like they can't say this is ours, we've ruled this, this is ours, we've had this for X amount of years, and it's recognized as theirs.
Well, like the group I was talking about before, the BAIO, they're in negotiations for land in Africa. It's just that they have problems organizing people to go get the land. So I'm thinking if we do what I'm talking about as far as organizing people culturally or giving them the systems where they can actually get along and know how they're going to settle the land, then maybe that'll mobilize people to actually get the land. But if you've never organized yourselves to actually be able to manage land and pass it down and share it, then it doesn't really matter. If they're already they've been in Africa talking to people about settling land, but they can't get anybody to get along with them, come and build with them. So they've been actually talking on YouTube, arguing with people for probably 10 years.
So just repeat that last bit. I didn't hear what you said.
They've been arguing on YouTube for 10 years about whether they should get land in Africa, but they can't get anybody into their group.
Oh right, okay. So it's like you said, the collective and just kind of making that shift towards. But what could be for now, or is that the only thing? Is that the only option is to move, or is there anything that could be done, kind of in the meantime before
In the
that
meantime,
shift starts to take place?
yeah, people could like we were talking about the family association, the clubs. People could form clubs to maybe build neighborhoods here together, and then do business like ULU business or cooperative economics across the globe. It's not an either or. You can, as long as you're organized, you can get what you want accomplished to a certain degree.
Okay. Yeah, because I think socially it would be easier to unify over let's say the economics thing, because there is no kind of land available and things like that, whereas like in the Caribbean the land is available, and the social kind of dynamic is there, but it's just the economics is just it's just bad. It's really bad, the economic situation.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the ones without the land can do the social, the ones with the land can do the economics, and try and even merge those parts of the diaspora together. So it's just like a bunch of merging from who has what to put together to kind of form the bigger collective.
Yep.
And then not to mention as well, I mean, some people from the Caribbean will not end up going to Africa. We know that. So that's like two places that we can definitely have. You'll have West Africa or just Africa generally, and then you have the Caribbean as well.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's all about knowledge of self. You cannot love or like what you don't know. Do our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean know Africa? No, they don't. You know, and Garvey's he's more African than all of us, and he's from the Caribbean, and that's what he mostly uh, struggled about and battled for our people, for us to be able to know who we are and where we come from. And from there you get love, because love is all about knowledge. So once you have proven successful vendors of Caribbeans entering into Africa and setting up businesses, that's gonna make the other Caribbean people know about Africa and love Africa, and that's gonna create an imitation, and more Caribbean people would be willing to venture into Africa. You have to set some successful examples of what you are aiming to do.
Yeah, I want to make a comment about that word love, because I actually have a book written about it. But I think when we say the word love, we get it from a European perspective, where it's talking about rational feelings, and but from the African perspective, basically love was basically extending your hand or helping people or cooperation. And so if we could get people to cooperate, and like you said, money is blood, or just working together, I think that's what we mean by love, not necessarily just festivals or dancing together or things like that,
That's
but actually
that's
working together.
that's the real African meaning of love, and that's the real meaning of love. That's the collective love. Love can only be collective.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have an individual love, or and a love directed to one person only, as the European try to sell us. Love is, if I marry a sister, I marry her family. That's the African tradition. So I love her whole entire family, and I'm becoming myself part of the family. That's what love means for African people. So mother, father, and child is not an African concept. The African tradition is having multiple fathers. Everybody's your father. Everybody's your mother. That's collective love. And thanks for reminding it, bro.
Yeah, definitely the extended family kind of thing. Like that's what I grew up in. So, I've got, as well as my mom, I've got my aunts, my uncles, my grandparents, and then you've got your family from overseas who come to see you. So there's always like that family. And then the people on the outside who may not be your direct family, but then they're your family also. And that just ties into the social structure that we're trying to push.
Yes. Mm.
So
And
I
that's
mean, I
how
don't know.
we that's the only way we can rebuild our mindset. We've been destroyed. We've been destroyed. We have brother brothers, sisters celebrating Valentine's Days, or Christmas, or nonsense, European white supremacy celebrations. Um, so no wonder why your spending is messed up. If your mindset is messed up, your spending is gonna be messed up. So you talk about you're talking about that £2,000 that you're earning monthly. That half of it goes to your landlord. Who's your landlord? You think that your landlord is the man you're giving the money to. No, that's not your landlord. Your landlord is whoever is behind him, meaning the bank. Your landlord is the bank who lent money um, um, to your landlord, your physical human being landlord. Now half of it, so that's the rest of it, the groceries. Who are your groceries? Asians, the Arabs, the Chinese, the East Indians. Okay, so that's £300 going there every month, if not not much. Um, I think it's even more than that. Um, what is left for your people? That's my question. That's the bottom line. That's my question. What is left for your people? If nothing is left from your earnings for your people, nothing is gonna be left for you. Nothing is gonna be left for you.
That's very true. That's why we need to set this goal in mind. So we need to start creating these like family clubs or family organizations, and then setting out goals in mind, setting these goals, and then we need to save and work towards it, because then, like you said, they will have the purpose to put the money away, because then once we start to invest that money, then we'll get the return on our money, and then that will start to really kick up our economy.
Hmm. But with the thing I've found that's funny with this family club suggestion, we hear a lot about people saying black women is God, black family is the key to nation building, but you won't believe how much resistance you get to just saying all these black families should come into a club together and speak with one voice. You won't believe how much resistance you get from the so-called online community, or people who say the same thing, but so they're talking out of both sides of the mouth. So that's what I've realized over the past 6 months, just going down this path. But it's really eye opening. But the good thing is that in real life, people are receptive to the idea. Like when you talk to people where I'm, like just on the ground, they like the idea. Just about getting it done. But it's really funny the people that I'm just saying, don't take the people online too seriously.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, for some people, it's just lip service. At the end of the day, I mean, if it does kind of put that seed into some people's head that actually maybe is a good idea, then they kind of do us a favor of starting to get people's brains thinking. It's just that they don't actually carry out the action. That's the only downside of it. But I mean, I guess there's a silver lining to every grey cloud, and that would be that people do start to think. If nothing else, they start to think. But then you just need to kind of catch those people in time, and then kind of get that discussion going. But me,
Yeah.
I'm open to it. I'm definitely open to it, because seeing it for myself and seeing like the kind of potential in the different countries that we do have, in the small countries that we do have, it's definitely possible. But like Radike said, we have to show it. Like, money talks and BS walks. You actually have to show what you can offer, and then you'll get the people on board.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I
Yeah,
mean
I don't
that's
know.
all I have to
I
say
don't
on
know.
that.
Also, I don't know, with the UNIA ACL, I think one of when you examine the format that they use, it was basically a fraternity or a charity. on one end, but it was trying to be
You're not sounding so good. You're breaking up.
when you look at the old UNIA and ACL back in Garvey's day, they were using a fraternity system or a charity system to a certain degree. So basically, they were raising money, saying they were going to provide for all black people, but all black people weren't contributing to the treasury. So what you have is a negative imbalance or a negative balance,
Right.
where you're not going to have a government that provides for everybody. If everybody isn't contributing, you can only provide for the people that are contributing. So that's one thing to look out for.
Well,
So we're
would
going to be
that be
building
where
these
the
clubs.
like the kind of
Essentially.
traditional Igbo structure of not necessarily having like the one king, the one Eze, but you've got like different groups, different let's say different clans of people, and you've got kind of your chief, and your chief provides for your particular group, and so on and so forth. Is that where something
No,
like that would come in?
I mean, just like if you're going to be building a group, then the group has to benefit from their work. You can't just be giving it to random people and they do whatever they want with it. It's like a cooperative system. It's supposed to be a closed system where the people who do the work benefit.
Okay, right. I get what you're saying. Those who put in will get out.
Yeah, that's like how any government or citizen or nation works. So I think they had that concept uh, backwards, but it was because it was the times were so desperate that they had to say everybody black was on the same team or same government, the
Hmm.
same nation, and they all have the same citizenship. Contribute to us. We're going to provide for everybody, but in the end, it wasn't possible.
Okay. I mean, I don't really have much to say. Maybe I'll see if anyone has any questions. Let's put that in the chat. If anyone does have any questions, you can just post them in. Uh, um, I'm gonna try and do some more live streams. I'm only gonna do this stream on this channel, and then I'm gonna do it on my Afro Caribbean Diaspora Talks channel. It's just that today I did click to do the live stream, but then it told me I need to wait 24 hours before they allow me to live stream off that channel for whatever reason. So
Hmm.
I've just
Yeah, I think we pretty much closed out. Probably don't have any questions, but I was talking to a brother in Haiti. He liked these ideas too, and I think I talked to somebody in Atlanta. They're already organizing similar things. So I think it's something that'll gain traction, and we already have organizations and governments in Africa, all over Africa, that are already organizing
you
this
sound quite
action.
bad.
Like,
It
how much
sounds
did you
kind of
hear?
funny. I heard what you said, but it was like slow motiony.
I said, I think these ideas will gain traction quickly. It's just about getting the right people on board. 'Cause you don't want people with double agendas, hidden agendas, on board.
Right.
So
What's the prerequisites then?
I mean, as long as they're uh, following the pattern set by like Egbe Joba, and we could get a traditional governments on board. I think we'd have to get something written down going forward, like us lifting us has things written down. I think we just have to maybe meet with the UNIA and ACL, or join in mass and have regular meetings on what our direction is going forward.
Hmm.
I think that they have a democratic voting system on how to amend things and update things. So if you want to change anything, you have to be a member.
All
So
right, that's yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty fair. So it's just about following the rules, and obviously, people would have to agree to it. I'm just gonna put the link in for the GoFundMe for the African Heritage Foundation. Um, basically, just to give people a bit of a rundown as well, so they're aware. So this is a group that's currently running in Barbados. It's a non-government organization, charity, registered charity, that is basically African centered, doing education, trying to get a community business initiative going, and to try and help with starting up businesses for the local community. So I've been there myself. Went to the headquarters. They do like a STEM program, so they teach children science, homeschooling, and education, and help with kind of the things that go along in the community because the place is so small. It's like you can go to them and they'll try to do their best to help if possible. So the HQ basically needs refurbishment. You can click on the link and see the video basically, and I've also got it on my other channel if anyone wants to have a look. We try to raise 5,000 US to get refurbishment done, and help with some other issues that are going on in the community if anyone's interested. Just to throw that in, I appreciate if anyone has a look. But anything else?
They're also interested in becoming a government. Remember, that's like the most important part.
So repeat that.
They're interested in building a grassroots government.
Yeah, self-governance. Definitely interested in self-governance. It's we're just basically trying to get that change going. We're trying to move back to our roots in the Caribbean, in Barbados. Um, if you're interested as well, you can visit the website africanheritagefoundation.com. They're on Facebook. But yeah, if you click on the GoFundMe link, and then you'll find the link to their website as well, you'll be able to see what the group is about. And what I'll do as well, once this is finished and I re-upload it, I'll put all the links into the description so that people can see as well.
Yeah,
We can start
that's
networking
interesting
and linking
because
up.
that's interesting because Barbados, like we said, people say they want land, but then you might have different governments popping up in different ways to get along on the land, different ideologies coming up. So that's why I thought it was interesting to mention that you might get land, but you might have different governments arguing over the land or how to manage it. So
Yeah, I mean,
I think
because the place is small, but there is definitely some land. There is definitely land for people to buy. It's just a shame that all the foreigners are coming and taking it before we take it. So, and if
oh,
I think the government will probably sell it to you if you come to them quick enough with enough money. They will sell it to you, but the foreigners get there before
yeah,
we do because we don't take any interest in our
you would think
countries.
that like I thought it was owned by the people that are already there, as far as
No,
the
no, no.
black people.
Uh,
Yeah,
um,
it's
the
owned by the
government
state, but it's
sell
okay. Yeah,
everything.
yep.
Yeah, they sold our national sport. They actually sold a unique type of sheep to the Germans. So they kind of own like a copyright over a particular
Oh,
sheep. Yeah, yeah. That's the
Wow.
kind of things that they do. They just sell everything. Everything that we have, they'll sell it. Uh, I'm being really
that's so
serious. I mean, if you Google black belly sheep, they don't own that anymore.
mm-hmm. Wow.
They don't own it. Road tennis,
Wow.
that's gone. Anything that we have, apparently solar panels were developed there. And we see where solar panels are today, and their economy's in the toilet. So that shows you that the money hasn't gone back to where it should have. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's up to us, especially for the Caribbean diaspora, to stop abandoning where we come from
Mm-hmm.
and start to work towards home, because we do have somewhere where we come from. Britain or Europe isn't the be all and end all. America isn't the be all and end all. The same way our
Mm-hmm.
grandparents emigrated and sent money back, we should be doing the same. I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say on this thing. I don't know, Madike, do you want to say anything before we close out?
Uh, no, I've been listening it, and I'm just looking forward for the next session because we need some strategies, we need some events, we need some link ups. I'm gonna be in London myself. I'm gonna be in contact with you very soon because I'm gonna need your help.
Okay. Yeah.
And yeah, remember, people, it's us lifting us. All we have is us. All we got is us. So we should be lifting us. Yeah.
All right, Chizora, anything before we close out?
No, I ain't got nothing to say. That was a good closeout.
All right, I appreciate everyone coming and watching, giving your questions, opinions. Peace, everyone in the chat. Zeus Flippy, Andre Toppin Jr., Cohen Davis. Let me scroll up. JW, Richard, Victor Dixon, Mark Black. I think I said JW, Jermaine Woods, Abigail Duskluck, King Devon Phillips, and I think that. Oh, and Teresa F. I think that's everybody. So, in the States, have a good evening. People in the UK, have a good night. And yeah, no, just appreciate everybody watching. But just you won't see this video up on this channel. I'll put it onto my other channel. So yeah, everyone have a good night.
All right. Peace. Thank you.
Peace.
Peace. Good night.